Okay. Okay. Let me try to break this down as simple as I possibly can. Let me begin with a paraphrasing a famous Christian philosopher in the early 20th century named Cornelius Van Til. And what he said was, "You don't have to be an expert in the subject matter to know the truth of a thing. All that is necessary and what is sufficient is the spirit of truth in you." To put it in modern terms, I know bullshit when I hear it. So we're no experts in economics. I've studied it quite a bit. I understand, and my videos I've explained a little bit about my understanding of macroeconomics and what we can do as a society to make life better for working class people. But what I do know about the tariffs, what little I do know, keeping in mind that you don't have to be an expert in this thing, but you know bullshit when you hear it. What it seems like what Trump is trying to do with what they are calling now the Mar-a-Lago Accord, which is to tariff the whole world and then go to each country individually and try to make a deal with them as far as how they're going to trade back and forth, right? How they're going to go proceed. So let's go back just a little bit in history and explain a little bit about how it is that the United States convinced China to join the WTO, World Trade Organization, and by doing so, they opened up their markets to China, right? And China started producing. Their idea was to get their working class people out of poverty, and they did a hell of a job over the last 20 years. Something like 800 million people, a lot of people out of poverty over the last 2 decades. And they did this by beefing up their manufacturing and subsidizing a lot of their industry. And so the United States looked at that and said, like Warren Mosler would say in how the UMKC academics, University of Missouri Kansas City, agreed and confirmed that trade is opposite of Christianity. In Christianity, it says that you should give. Well, in trade between nations, it's opposite. It's better to receive than to give. Warren Mosler puts it this way. He says that once we're a deficit nation, in other words, a lot of people sell their stuff to the United States and we pay for that stuff and it comes in cheap, right? Uh, what we owe China is basically a back statement, a piece of paper, a balance sheet. That's all we owe China. And, the Congress has the power of the purse and they could use fiscal policy to pay for these things coming to China. We are the benefactors in this because we buy things cheap. And as far as our labor is concerned, we can come up with other things to do, which we haven't. And the reason why we haven't is because of neoliberal policies. Now, neoliberal policies is all about finding labor for cheap, okay, and deindustrializing here in the United States. So we're not interested in making things anymore. For the last 30 years, we stopped industrializing and gave it to everybody else and created a deficit, right? So now we find ourselves through neoliberal policies, which says to business, I let you give you free reign as to how you make your money. I allow you to beef up the price of your stocks and pay it back to your CEOs as bonuses, right? We're not interested. We don't care that if you don't take those profits and turn around and buy manufacturing equipment to build up the working class and build up industry in America because we have financialized our economy. In other words, everything's about money making money, not necessarily industry, making money, right? So that's what's going on. Now, what a lot of people are complaining about now is because, well, China's taking advantage. Trump and these people make it sound like, we're being taken advantage of. No, we're not. We're not being taken advantage of. This was their plan from the very beginning. And what has happened is that we have so financialized our economy, money making money, in other words, right? All about the profit, not about industrializing, not about taking care of the economy, you know what I mean? And building and beefing up a strong middle class and a strong working class in order to keep our economy going. Instead of doing that, money makes money. They pass laws like the Dodd-Frank bill. Obama was supposed to give us a 21st century Glass-Steagall Act, which separates commercial banking and investment banking so we won't have another financial crash. Instead of doing that, he did a watered down version of that, called it the Dodd-Frank, and they're still trading derivatives, right? In other words, scam, big time scam. So we're heading down another financial crash. So what does Trump do? He tries to shortcut it and say, I know what I could do. I'll come up with this idea with the Mar-a-Lago Accord and we'll rearrange the trading. But what he failed to understand is that in order to do tariffs, you have to first have a manufacturing base, right? Because there's really nothing wrong with tariffs, the best I understand, right? As long as you have a manufacturing base to produce the things that you're not going to allow other countries to sell to you at a cheaper rate. All right. Well, now you have a situation where Trump says, all right, China's not able to bring in their stuff at a cheap cost. Now you got to buy American because Americans are going to come back and start building things. But the problem with that is that because of neoliberalism, which allows corporations and the fire sectors of our economy, finance, insurance, and real estate, to raise the rates on the cost of living on these things. We don't have enough money to buy these things that supposedly Trump is going to bring back and start manufacturing because we don't have that money because we're paying most of our money to oligarchs and BlackRock who owns a lot of our houses, right? And is able and are able to raise the prices because they don't put price controls. Neoliberalism is not about that. It's about allowing companies to go hog wild, you know, and now Giannis Varoufakis would put it this way: it's like a two-barrel shotgun. The first shot is through trade tariffs around the world equally, which is dumb, right? And what he makes the second point was that now, after that, now he's going to give tax breaks to the wealthy people in thinking that they're going to take that money and buy machinery, buy dyes buy factories to start beefing up manufacturing in America. Well, no, it's not. It's not. They're not going to do that. Rich people don't do that. Rich people create a situation where they get bonuses, and they leave the working class out to dry because they're all about inequality. They don't care about working class people. They don't care like China cares, right? China says, and Ben Norton would make it clear in his geopolitical economics videos that what China has done is they called it the commanding heights. China says opposite of what neoliberalism is doing here in America. China says there are certain things that the federal government, their government, is going to pay for, like utilities, like transportation, like education, like a portion of their housing. And then after doing that, then companies now can start making things at the cheap. They don't have to pay their workers a lot of money because their workers don't need money to pay for health insurance, for educating their children, for your real estate. Now they're paying less to that. Now they have more money to go out and go shopping and buy that car that they have in the market. You see, you understand how that works, but keep in mind that the neoliberals and those in power that control the media call that socialism. Ooh, socialism, a dirty word. You're a socialist. But if socialism is a dirty word, again, we're a capitalist society. We're not talking about you know, s- socializing or communism. We are a capitalist society, but we're interested in industrial capitalism, not what is called finance capitalism, money making money. You understand? So, what we got to do then is change this thing around. Well, I was getting my point. So Trump turns around now. The second part of that shotgun is giving tax breaks to the wealthy oligarchs, and they're going to take that money and they're not going to spend it back into the economy, and we're going to get worse. Here's my argument. This is what I've been talking about. We're going to hell in a handbaskets, America. We're going to hell in a handbasket. Things are going to get worse, and it's going to get to the point where we're not going to be able to handle it anymore, and this is where violent revolution comes in. And I argue with George Monbiot on my YouTube video, and what he talks about is that there are four ways that oligarchs get overturned. Number one is war. Number two is a plague. Number three is a government collapse, and number four is violent revolution. I argue that we can avoid all those and make it a different way. If we're going to go with hell in a handbasket, let's make it under our terms. If we're going to sacrifice, if we're going to suffer, and if we're going to have to reset, let's do it under our terms. in our terms, is to do away and put to death once and for all this neoliberal ideology and get back to decent society and decent, smart macroeconomic policy. And that is through a jobs guarantee program that guarantees everybody a job, locally administered, federally financed, but locally administered. That allows working class people to go to work, gives them free insurance, free education, and a guaranteed job. And in this way, now people have the money to go out a buffer stock for employers. Whenever we do start bringing manufacturing back to America and stop this trade deficit, right, and start manufacturing again, now the employers have a pool of employees to choose from that are feel confident and good about hiring and getting people out of this buffer stock, this jobs guarantee program, and pay them a little bit more than what they would be paid during this temporary time that they're working and contributing to the economy by buying things, having the minimum, right, and going out shopping and keeping the economy going. It stabilizes the economy. It allows employers to pick good employees to hire. And once we're booming again, so once we're having a strong economy again, then we'll stop the jobs guarantee or slow it down quite a bit, because now we're running really hot, and now we start taxing working class people again. But people won't mind the taxes as long as they're getting paid, right? So that is the idea. It it is very scary what I'm proposing. Let's be honest here. What I'm asking people to do is to go 2 months without paying their rent, their car payment, their health insurance, or car insurance by going on a 60-day sabbatical, what I call a sabbatical. I tell people to wear red and white on their vehicles, put red and white streamers on their vehicles, on their door handles, and wear red and white on their bodies, so that wherever they go, they're seen wearing red and white, and part of the army to fight to get our country back. Now, this is what we're going to do. This is a strategy. We're going to go on a 60-day sabbatical starting Labor Day 2027. If they don't give us these oligarchs that run this country, keep in mind that we have two elections in America. The first election is through rich people. Once they, with their money, find the representatives that best represent their interests, then they turn around and they say, now it's your turn. Now you could choose. And that's your democracy. It's bullcrap. It's not democracy. It's not democracy. It's oligarchy, right? What we want to do is be able to pick our own representatives with our money, make our dollar just as powerful as a rich person's dollar. Now we have an equal playing field. Now we have representatives not dialing, begging for money to run for office. We have representatives actually taking the time, looking at the issues, and trying to figure out which is the best way forward for both labor and business, right? Okay, this is what we're looking for. And the only way we get that is through free and fair elections. And this is what we're saying. We're saying that on Labor Day 2027, we who wear the red and white as a uniform and put red and white on our vehicles are telling truck drivers across America to park their trucks for 60 days if we don't get two things. Number one, free and fair elections. And number two, a mere vote on universal health care. If we don't get those two things, truck driver, be our new representative with power and park your trucks. Now, what does that do? We all know that we're 60 days or two paychecks from being homeless. What is the oligarch to do with a whole nation that is behind 2 months on their rent, on their mortgage, on their car payment, their car insurance, and their health care? With the opportunity, with the opportunity to discuss between each other with 2 months time to talk to one another and come to a decision to say, let's make this 6 months that we don't pay our rent, our car payment, our car insurance, our health insurance. What are they to do with that? This is powerful stuff, but it takes courage. I'm not sugarcoating this. This is a scary thing, to be in a position to where you're worried about whether or not you're going to have a home to live in. But understand that a whole nation is going to be that way. We're going to the heart of the matter. We're going to where they understand this is power. This is why I say we're not going on a 60-day sabbatical. They will not allow that to happen. Not to mention the fact that if, in fact, they do make us do this, then what I, as a truck driver, would do would talk to the truck drivers and say, you know what? Now it's about me because I'm the person putting my job on the line, right? I'm going to go talk to my supervisor and tell him I'm not quitting my job, but I am going to walk off for 60 days. I'll see you in 2 months. Hopefully, you'll have my job for me. But if you oligarchs and your representatives, are you going to allow me to do this? Then make sure that while I'm sitting at home representing the working class and middle class America, I'm going to come up with an extra two things before I come back to work. And that is number one, a $20,000 savings bond from not the Congress, but from the oligarchs' account, from their savings, from their treasury bonds. They're going to go from there, from them to me as a truck driver before I start that truck again. And not only that, we're going to get paid because of technology today, GPS. We should get paid from shipping and receiving door to shipping and receiving door. None of this Rand McNally miles anymore. We're losing minimum $20 a load every time we go. Probably $20 to $40, $50 a day we're losing because they go through this Rand McNally bullcrap. When we have the technology to pay a trucker from shipping and receiving door to shipping and receiving door, we'll demand those two things extra. Now, what are you going to do, oligarchs, when you have a whole freaking nation now not going back to starting their truck again unless they get a $20,000 savings bond? And this, the truck drivers will agree to while we have 2 months to discuss this. Now, do you think we're really going to go on a 60-day sabbatical? And all you have to do, people, is have the courage to do one simple thing: wear red and white on your body and put red and white streamers on your vehicles, telling your neighbors that you are of the army to fight back to get our country back with power. That's all you got to do. You know, God bless you. You're out there protesting in the streets with your fists in the air and, you know, you demand justice. God bless you. Continue doing that. Maybe 10 years down the road, we'll have the political will and the political power to get something done. I argue that we can get it done within 2 years. I argue that you don't have to go to protests. That all you got to do is be seen as part of the army to fight back for truth, for justice, for social justice, to put to death once and for all this neoliberal ideology. And Trump and his idea about trade wars and all that, if we're going to crash, people, let's crash on our terms, under our narrative, which is the correct narrative, which is actually what has happened to working class and middle class over the last 40 years, that we've been hijacked, we've been taken advantage of. On all they're saying is a socialist, my ass. If socialism is a dirty word, if you're going to play that game, then neoliberalism is a foul stench. Fight with me.